Welcome, crossover report. Three guys, one mic. We haven't done a three guys, one mic video in quite some time, but back at it. Most beautiful time of the year in basketball in my mind, and I think for pretty much every basketball fan out there. Today is the beginning of March Madness 2016, and it's going to be a full slate of games starting today. Are the play-in games heading into this weekend are the first two rounds, so a lot of basketball ahead. It's basketball fans heaven, basically. There's only a million games to choose from, so that all starting this week. Sunday was the official seeding of all the teams in the bracket. Not a whole lot of surprise, but there were two cases that people were a little skeptical on from the committee on how they seeded, so we're going to talk about the two of those. As always, Nick Damiani, Paul Lamb, myself, Neil Doyle. So let's jump right into it. Seeding-wise, the four number ones, Kansas, North Carolina, Oregon, and then Virginia are the four number one seeds. Some interesting, though, with the Virginia number one seed was that Saturday they lost in the championship game in the ACC to North Carolina. And then a lot of people thought that that might knock them off the number one seed spot, losing in that championship game, with Michigan State having a chance on that this past Sunday in the Big Ten championship game. They ended up winning the Big Ten championship. A lot of people thought that then those two teams would possibly flip-flop between the one and the two. Didn't happen that way. Virginia still got the one seed, even though they lost in the ACC championship game. So, either one really could have fit as the one seed in my mind. A lot of people, though, kind of skeptical and giving critique to the committee because nobody really knows anymore. It seems each year it changes, the criteria of how you get seeded in the NCAA tournament. Is it RPI? Is it strength of schedule? Nobody really ever knows. Is it if you win your conference tournament and you're one of those teams that could get higher, should that put you as the one? A lot of people thought that was going to be the case for Michigan State. It wasn't the case. In your guys' mind, was that the right seeding on that? Placing Virginia as the one, Michigan State as the two, or should it have been flip-flopped either way? Paul, thoughts?
Well, I think it's very likely that this committee has been making their choices for the seeding before all the conference tournaments are over. And I think that's one of the things that really hurts you having a conference championship game on a Sunday like the Big Ten has, where I don't think the committee – they're watching if you win or not. If you lose, I think it hurts you a lot more than it would help you if you win. But, you look more at the Michigan State thing, and they're really – they're obviously the fifth best. They would be the fifth one seed if there are 5 one seeds. And I think their road to the Elite Eight or the Final Four is going to be easier than Virginia's. They'd have Dayton in the second round, then Utah or Seton Hall after that. But Virginia's got to go through Butler or Texas Tech. They got to go through Iowa State or Purdue. Those are dangerous teams you don't really want to face in March. So even though Michigan State did get snubbed, I think they got the better end of the deal.
Yeah, I think Paul hit it right on the head there with what he was explaining there, how hard UVA's road is truly going to be to get through. Iowa State for a while was considered a top 5 team in the NCAA, and Michigan State basically gets to breeze through the bottom of that bracket with arguably their toughest game being Utah. And honestly, I'm not that big on Utah this year, but for that to be their toughest game when in reality Purdue and Iowa State are probably both better teams than Utah is fantastic for them. They definitely deserve the one seed, especially anytime you win the Big Ten tournament. I don't think you can put a one seed for a team that loses a conference championship in a lot of scenarios, because you're talking about a team that's considered one of the 4 best in college basketball and they couldn't finish a conference championship late in March. I just have a big problem with that. But like Paul said, Michigan State got the better end of the deal in the end. So maybe the committee was looking at that too, and they see that they gave them an easier road to get there. I don't know.
Granted, Virginia did lose to another number one seed in North Carolina, but I guess it does show now that the committee, and it just seems to change every year. Nobody really ever knows what the criteria is going to be, and they went this year. Virginia had more wins against the top 25 and the top 50 compared to Michigan State, and their RPI was a little bit higher. So, not surprising that they put Virginia at that one seed over Michigan State, but it got talk because of them losing in the ACC championship and Michigan State winning that, it wasn't flip-flop between those two. But that was a little bit of the controversy in the seeding. And then the other topic and the other seeding that some people got some talk about was Kentucky and Texas A&M in the SEC. Kentucky won the SEC tournament over Texas A&M on Sunday in overtime. So a lot of people thought that, Kentucky's seed wouldn't be too bad. Going through the seeding process, Texas A&M got placed over in, I believe, what was it, the West bracket, and they got a 3 seed. So it was funny because they actually interviewed Calipari after Kentucky got seeded as a 4. He came on ESPN for a brief interview with Reese Davis, and he said he was sitting there watching the seedings, and when he saw Texas A&M got a 3 after they had lost in the SEC championship game, he was sitting there and he thought, well, wow, are we going to get a 3 or a 2 seed? When he thought his team could possibly get like a 5, and they ended up getting a 4 behind Texas A&M after beating them. He said he wasn't really too shocked, and I'm sure he was a little bit upset and not understanding how the committee is really seeding these games, but I think it could go along the lines of what Paul had just said, that it seems like the committee is choosing these seedings before those a few games on Sunday. Is that more, Paul, what you think happened here in this case, with Kentucky getting that lower seed than Texas A&M after they had just beaten them on Sunday?
I think that's what it's got to be. Or even further, Cal went into a bunch of different times throughout his coaching career that his Kentucky teams or his other teams have had to travel. They would say they're the 1 seed. They would have to travel to Houston and play Texas A&M in Houston. They have to play Texas in Dallas as the 1 seed. So I don't know if he did something to somebody on the committee, but I mean, I think another big part of what he said was that this makes the road so much tougher. He doesn't care. He says, if we're the best team in the country, we'll beat anybody no matter what. You can see this as a 16, doesn't matter. But this makes Indiana's road that much tougher. This makes North Carolina's road so tough. I mean, North Carolina has to play Florida Gulf Coast in the first round, who, granted, is a 16 seed, but they're not that far removed from having a Cinderella run. Then they have to play Providence. And then the Sweet 16, they have to play Kentucky, a team that will probably be top 10 when the polls come out today or yesterday, whenever they came out, because they just won the SEC. That doesn't seem fair to the teams around them.
Right, like Paul said, that's what Cal was saying in his thing. He said it doesn't really affect his team right away. It affects the teams around them. Like you said, Indiana was the 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament, and they're going to get out of this, and they're going to play Kentucky in the second round if they beat Chattanooga. Granted, Indiana kind of dug their own grave by losing in the first round in their first game there. But still, it kind of ruins what they had during the regular season, because I'm pretty sure when they were talking about seeding teams and stuff, the committee really, most of it's based on regular season and not necessarily on the tournament that they just had there. Because a lot of schools, like the mid-majors, they can't rely a lot on that tournament unless they get the automatic bid. So they got to look at the regular season stuff for them. So, like Jay Billis, I don't know if you guys watched any of this. Jay Billis was really concerned about how much they took into factor for these teams like Michigan. Michigan had no chance of getting into the tournament if they didn't make that run in the Big Ten tournament. Right. But a team like Monmouth, they can only lose it in the Big Ten in their tournament. So it's kind of like, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because, that was one of Calipari's quotes, did we not just play a basketball game today? They won the SEC championship over a team, but then the team they just beat gets a 1 seed higher. I mean, it is interesting to ask, and I think it is. You have to look at, most likely there is some pre-planning, and earlier in the week, this committee's already getting in their mind where teams are seated, but like you said, a team like Michigan doesn't get into the tournament without making that run. So it should be more up to the last game on Sunday, but you've got to think.
At the same, right. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, what were you going to say?
At the same time, right, there's got to be some pre-planning because you've got 68 teams you got to put into a field. And when did the Big Ten tournament, whatever the last tournament game was on Sunday, ended at 4 or 5 o'clock, and you're trying to get a bracket out by 6 o'clock. So I think you got to see these teams. All the championship games have got to be done by the Saturday before Selection Sunday, or else you're going to keep seeing this because they don't have enough time to deliberate on everything. They've already got an idea. They just leave a couple spots open. You don't want that. You want them looking at the whole field at once. You don't want them just looking, well, this team, we're going to put them here no matter what happens to that team.
And actually, they're talking about moving the Big Ten tournament up a week early next year, so it's the same as like the Missouri Valley in those games.
Well, and that was Calipari. He doesn't understand why that championship game is on a Sunday. Like the ACC plays their championship game on that Saturday, and a few of those other bigger. I think the Big 12 was on Saturday as well. So I think if you moved, even if you kept it the same week of the bigger power conference tournaments, that if you just played that game on a Saturday night, it gives the committee the whole day then Sunday to go over, okay, after all these conference tournaments are over, if things need to be changed. I do think there's obviously planning well before the conference tournaments as to where teams are going to be seated, but it's pretty evident in this case that they had Kentucky and Texas A&M where they wanted them seated. Granted, Texas A&M did win the SEC conference regular season and had a great year, but it is interesting that a team that just won a championship gets seated one worse than the team they just beat. But that got a lot of controversy. Calipari talked about it, but like he said, he doesn't really care. It just makes other teams' paths harder. Kentucky playing some really good basketball. Got to give a shout out to our good friend Tyler Eulis at UK. Man, he had a great championship game. That was fun to watch. So Calipari came out and said he's got to be player of the year. I hope he should win it, but like he said, people are going to be afraid.
He shouldn't win it. He shouldn't win it.
Well, not over Buddy Hield, but
I think we all wish he would win it, but I don't think he should.
Buddy
I
Hield,
think Buddy Hield's a better candidate. I think Denzel Valentine's a better candidate. I would even be able to consider Bryce Johnson as a better candidate.
I think people are afraid to look at him like Calipari said, though. He's only, 5'9" point guard. That's kind of – it's scary. But he had a great year, and he's only helping his draft stock, and, there's no reason he can't play in the NBA. But
he's probably the most valuable player to his team in college basketball.
They're playing some good basketball. He's playing great basketball. So Kentucky gets that 4 seed. It's going to make, all those teams up in the top of that east side of the bracket even tougher with Kentucky getting that 4 seed. But, seeding on Sunday, other than those two, kind of controversial seedings, were there any other seeds that you guys thought teams might have got snubbed on, teams that might have got seeded too high? Any in particular from you two, or not really?
No, not really.
Paul?
Yeah, I think Gonzaga's an 11 seed. Gonzaga was a top 10 team at the start of the year. Granted, they haven't been as good, but I thought 11 was a little too far from where they should be. They still got Kyle Wiltshire. He's a big-time player. So I think that's definitely a bad draw for Seton Hall, too.
It's a bad draw for Gonzaga.
Yeah, and I thought the only other one team kind of looking at Syracuse got a 10 seed. I thought that was kind of generous. They had an up and down year playing in the ACC, one of the toughest conferences out there. But I mean, their RPI wasn't that great. Their strength of schedule, nothing that special, and they've lost 4 of their last 5 games. So I'm really surprised they were a 10. I thought they might have gone even higher, but they just barely got in as a 10 seed. So that was really the only other one, other than what we talked about with the Kentucky and the Michigan State with Virginia. But yeah, I thought Syracuse might have got seeded a little bit higher than they deserved. But other than that, I thought the committee got it pretty good based on the seedings. And as we said, starts tonight. I believe the first game is that FGCU versus, what is it, Fairleigh? How do you say that? Fairleigh? I don't even know.
I don't even know what you're
out in the Northeast Conference.
You're talking about Far Lehigh.
Farley, yeah, Dickinson. They play tonight, and then the other game tonight. The other game tonight is Vanderbilt, Wichita State. So that's all the seedings. Tournament starts tonight. It's a beautiful week of basketball. Stay tuned. We're going to have another video right after this one. We're going to talk more of our predictions for the tournament. Give a bunch of predictions in that. That's going to be in another video right after this. But as for the seedings, those are our thoughts. It's going to do it for us. Crossover Report. You can always follow us on Twitter at Crossover Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to us right here on YouTube. And you can visit us, crossoverreport.com. So that will do it for us.
And join our bracket challenge. My bad.
And also, I forgot to mention that. Enter the Crossover Report Challenge on ESPN. Fill out a bracket for free in our Crossover Report Challenge bracket field, and you have a chance to win a $15 Visa gift card. Totally free entry. No reason you shouldn't do it. Go follow us on Twitter first or like us on Facebook, and then go enter your bracket for free, and you have a chance to win a $15 gift card. There's no reason you shouldn't enter. So get that done also. Before the games start, I believe it starts at like 5:40 or something. So you have a little bit of time. But that's going to do it for us. Stay tuned for our next video with more of our predictions for the tournament. And that will do it for us. So Paul Lamb, Nick Damiani, myself, Neil Doyle, Crossover Report, 3 guys, 1 mic. We'll see you next time.